The Ford 5.8 sits crooked in the ditch, sun glaring off a windshield smeared with blood and dust, the doors thrown wide to the heat of a Louisiana morning. Forget the car of legend for a second right now. It's just a battered hulk, heat rippling off warped metal, every inch marked by violence. Up close, it's all blood streaks and bullet holes, shell casings scattered in the grass, and flies already claiming territory. No Hollywood glamour here, just the dirty, physical aftermath of a crime scene in the Deep South. May 1934. Inside, two bodies slump Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. Not icons, not tragic outlaws from a poster, just two people, flesh and blood, riddled, leaking, already drawing flies. They're about to become the centerpiece of one of the strangest and grisliest public spectacles of the 1930s. Hollywood always loves a quick fade after the shootout thunder of guns, then cut to black. Reality's a lot messier. The violence is over in seconds, but what's left behind is the kind of chaos no movie lingers on. The real story starts for everyone who actually had to deal with Bonnie and Clyde's remains, the lawmen, the locals, the undertaker, and pretty much anyone within sprinting distance once word got out. Because today, we're not following the chase or the shootout. We're following the bodies, what was left of them, who had to handle them, and how their last hours and days turned into a full-on circus for the infamous dead, and every unlucky living soul stuck in the aftermath. So what actually happens after the gunfire fade? What do you get when the most wanted outlaws in America die in broad daylight, and their corpses turn into the South's hottest ticket overnight? If you're picturing a quiet pickup by the local undertaker and a respectful burial, you're about to be disappointed. Their last ride was messier, nastier, and a whole lot more public than the legend ever admitted. What followed was blood, chaos, souvenir hunters, and morticians ready to walk off the job. Even in death, Bonnie and Clyde drew a crowd and chaos followed. First problem, the lawmen who pulled the trigger barely have time to lower their rifles before a new kind of trouble erupts. The news flashes through the Louisiana pines, Bonnie and Clyde, dead, shot to pieces right off the highway. And within minutes, here comes the crowd. Locals, reporters, kids, souvenir hunters, all desperate to get close. People run, ride, and tumble down the bank, jostling for a spot at the car. What they find is nothing like the romantic fade-out from the movies. Bonnie slumped sideways, her dress soaked in blood. Clyde folded over the wheel, his head almost unrecognizable. Both bodies are riddled dozens of wounds, faces swollen, arms embedded with glass and sweat and dirt everywhere. Inside the car, the air is sticky and sick with blood, gasoline, and flesh. The heat makes everything shimmer, and the stench, gunpowder, rot, death hits harder than any headline. But the real show is just beginning. The crowd surges forward, hands reaching in for anything they can grab. A lock of Bonnie's hair, a piece of her dress, a shell casing. Whatever proves they were there. Some just want to gawk or yell to friends that they saw the bodies up close. Lawmen shout, shove, even swing rifle butts. But the crowd keeps coming, a tidal wave of curiosity and greed. Order disintegrates almost instantly. And now the story veers from tragic to grotesque. The bodies are still in the car, bleeding from every wound, as flies and souvenir hunters close in. Someone tries to snip Clyde's tie. Someone else makes a grab for Bonnie's rings. It's open season, not a funeral. and the heat isn't helping anybody's manners. Meanwhile, the mortician's nightmare is just beginning. The undertaker from the nearest town is summoned to deal with two high-profile corpses, both full of holes, both already turning in the Louisiana heat. Blood and fluid leak everywhere, soaking the seats, pooling on the roadside. Every minute means more decay, more chaos. The next practical disaster. How do you even get these bodies out of the car without having them fall apart completely or letting the crowd strip them bare on the way out? There's no privacy, no dignity, no pause. The legend of Bonnie and Clyde has left the hands of the law, and now their bodies are public property. Dragging them out is more of a grim tug-of-war than a removal. Lawmen, shirts sticking with sweat, wedge themselves between the ford and a sea of locals. Their hands slip on sticky, blood-smeared doors. Turning Bonnie's body is brutal work. Her hair is matted with blood and glass, her dress glued to the upholstery. Clyde is heavier, and there's a pool of blood beneath him. It takes several men, cursing and grunting, to lift each body onto makeshift stretchers. The crowd keeps pressing. A boy elbows in for a better look. A woman tries to snip a lock of Bonnie's hair before a deputy swats her away. The car itself turns into a relic before the bodies are even cold. People scrape blood from the doors, pocket bits of glass, even yank off bullet-riddled trim. The Ford will end up a sideshow attraction someday, but right now it's an open-air coffin that reeks of blood, gunpowder, and decay. Finally, the bodies are loaded onto rough stretchers and into the undertaker's wagon. Really just a beat-up pickup. Definitely not the dignified ride to a final resting place. Bonnie and Clyde are laid out side by side, still bleeding, clothes torn, shoes missing, the wagon floor soaking up what's left. No sheets, no shrouds, just rough boards, and the hot Louisiana road ahead. But the trip to the funeral home brings no relief. The undertaker, honestly, spare a thought, for this guy has landed a job straight out of a horror show. Every bump in the road leaks more blood, and the smell grows thicker and sweeter, with rot and formaldehyde not even in the mix yet. The crowd follows behind, some on foot, some crammed into old cars, some even running alongside, waving for a better view. At the funeral home, things only get worse. The mortician has seen plenty of bodies before, but nothing like this. At least 50 wounds each, clothing fused to skin, faces swollen and torn. Even getting the clothes off is a nightmare. Fabric sticks to caked blood and strips away with skin. Wounds gape wide under harsh light. Towels and supplies run low fast. This is not the sort of job that shows up in a textbook, and then the logistics just collapse into the absurd. Embalming in the 1930s came down to formaldehyde, rubber hoses, and crossed fingers. The problem is, with every bullet hole, the fluid leaks back out. It pours from wounds, runs down the table, collects in puddles on the floor. Imagine trying to inflate a football that's full of holes, except there's more blood, more chemicals, and a smell that could empty Main Street. The mortician plugs holes with cotton, rags, tape, anything handy, trying to patch faces and keep the bodies together. It's a losing battle. Fluid leaks, bodies bloat, the stink just intensifies, formaldehyde, death, sweat. They bring in fans, but all that does is send the smell out into the street. Assistants mop and stuff and inject and repeat, just trying to keep fingers and faces in one piece, while souvenir hunters have already made off with rings and who knows what else. Meanwhile, outside, the crowd keeps growing. Word spreads, Bonnie and Clyde on display. Lines form around the block. Some people wait hours just to sneak a glimpse. Others try pushing into the back room. Police try to hold the line, but it's barely a suggestion at this point. Someone shouts that Bonnie's face moved a game of morbid telephone, guaranteed to draw even more onlookers. Inside, the mortician is running on fumes. His hands shake with exhaustion and frustration. Every time he closes one wound, another opens up. The smell is so strong that assistants have to step outside to gag. Visitors press handkerchiefs to their faces, but keep moving forward, curiosity overpowering disgust. If someone calls this a state funeral, it's only because denial is the state of mind right now. At this point, Bonnie and Clyde have become a public spectacle, not just a logistics nightmare. Every failed attempt to make them look presentable draws more whispers and more gawkers. The legend is falling apart literally and figuratively. The bodies aren't really theirs anymore. They belong to the crowd, the press, to history. And in the back room, the mortician's job description is down to one thing: keep the bodies from falling apart for as long as the circus demands. Eventually, even the mortician has to admit defeat. Patch, wrap, mop, do whatever, but with a couple 100 pounds of tissue, a dozen rifles worth of holes, and a Louisiana summer, you're not running a funeral, you're running an event. By now, faces are half-patched, hands are barely held together. Every orifice is leaking, embalming fluid, blood, sweat, you name it. The morticians, exhausted and reeking of chemicals, finally give up the idea of restoration. They just open the doors and let the crowd in. And that's when it turns into full American pageantry. People file by men in Sunday shirts, women fanning themselves, kids craning for a look. No hush, no reverence, just a crush of people, some laughing, some crying, others just checking a legend off their bucket list. The odor is so fierce that even the most determined gawkers can't stand close for long, but they try. Reporters lean in for details. Souvenir hunters reach for buttons, hair, even jewelry. Police bark half-hearted warnings. It's like trying to mop a flood with a pocket square. Outside, the spectacle only swells. At the Barrow funeral, the crowd grows to thousands, maybe 15,000, depending who you ask. Lawmen struggle to keep order. Some people faint from the heat or the smell. Others elbow to the front, desperate to get close to outlaw fame. Bonnie and Clyde's own mothers have to fight through strangers and press photographers just to reach their children's bodies. There's no moment for private grief. Every tear is public now. Even at the cemetery, cameras and crowds press in. And in the end, not even their families' wishes are respected. Bonnie and Clyde don't get to be buried together. Their mothers visit separate graves for the rest of their lives, always shadowed by the legend. And that bullet-riddled Ford, it sits as a roadside relic for days, sticky with dried blood, as crowds still scrape away souvenirs. Eventually, it'll land behind velvet ropes in a casino, proof that in America, nothing's too grisly for an exhibit ticket. This more than the doomed romance or headline-grabbing crime spree is Bonnie and Clyde's real legacy. What happened to their bodies after the shooting stopped. The spectacle, the mutilation, the public hunger for just one more piece of the legend. Hollywood always cuts away after the gunfire roll credits. Cue the sad music. But the truth is, their ending was just getting started. Bonnie and Clyde weren't just killed, they were claimed by the crowd, and the physical spectacle of their remains turned them into myth. So next time you hear about the last stand, star-crossed lovers, folk heroes, rebels, remember how it really ended, in heat, stench, and the greedy hands of America, desperate for a souvenir. If you want more stories where legend and physical reality collide, and where the legend never comes out looking too pretty, hit subscribe. Because sometimes history is exactly as messy as you hope it isn't.